Hello and welcome to another episode of Stan Sport FC. Thanks for joining us. I'm Vince Rugari. Huge show ahead. Boz and Foz are here. G'day, boys.
Hey, how
Happy
are we
Valentine's Day,
going?
boys.
What's that?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
happy Valentine's
Thank you
Day
for that
everyone.
lovely
Where
well
else would
wish.
you want to be, you know?
Yeah.
Other than on a couch with you guys talking about football.
Oh, yeah.
A lot to talk about, obviously. Champions
Massive.
League's back this week. We're going to preview
Yeah,
all those
huge.
games.
Yeah, massive.
Talk about
Europa
Club World Cup as
conference.
well.
Yeah,
But we're going to start, guys,
Massive.
with the biggest guest I say we'd have on this show. We haven't had many, but I don't think we're going to get a bigger one than this. Ange Postecoglou is joining us live from his office in Lennoxtown in Scotland. Ange, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, mate. Nice disclaimer there, mate, about me being the biggest guest.
Well, they are so far.
No, thanks, guys. Great to see you all.
Yeah, you too.
Just off the bat, Craig, great respect for what you're doing over there, mate, in terms of I've been away the last couple of years with the refugees. An unbelievable cause, an unbelievable effort from yourself, mate. Great respect.
Thanks,
for what
mate.
you're doing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Ange. I appreciate that. Yeah, and you're, by the way, before we get to the questions, you're in a great place there as well. As I noticed, the Celtic fans have got a really strong social justice kind of streak and done some wonderful stuff over the last few years. So
Yeah.
You've started him off now.
Well, that's the only question I'll get for the rest of the show. Look, I found a real sort of affinity with the club. I mean, obviously, we all know the club really well. You know, I think it maybe surprised people over here, at the beginning that, we seem like we're a million miles away and almost, as I said a couple of times, on another planet. But, we've always been more than aware about the great clubs around the world. Celtic's one of them. And their whole background and why the actual club was formed, to feed poor Irish immigrants. There was a purpose behind this club that stayed with it right to this day. And, for me, that resonates obviously strongly, being an immigrant in our own country. And South Melbourne, Hellas, Melbourne, Croatia, Sydney, Croatia, all these clubs were set up the same way. They weren't set up solely to be football clubs. They were set up to actually help people adjust to life in a new land. So, there's a great sort of affinity there with me as well.
Brilliant.
And to start with, 8 months ago you joined Celtic, and from the outside it looked like the club was in a bit of disarray. It was coming off its first season in 10 years where it hadn't won a trophy, which is huge for Celtic. Rangers had won the league by 25 points. Now, there's a lot of the season to go, obviously, but you're top of the table now. You've already won one trophy, and it seems like all of Celtic is behind you. How have you done it?
Look, I mean, there's nothing too unique there. I think, any manager gets a job, you're usually going in because things aren't going well. Rarely will you pick it up when a team's flying. So that part of it was kind of, I understood that. I think every role I've taken when it needed, some sort of new direction, and I'm comfortable in that space. So from that perspective, I kind of knew I was entering into, obviously, the magnitude of the club. And as you said, coming off a season when they didn't win anything, I mean, it's very easy to kind of say, well, it's a league, they should dominate. So about the same time, when you've come off a season where you've won nothing for a big club like this, it's, Boz will tell you, when it happens at a club like Manchester United, there's a massive there needs to be a massive reaction. So again, I kind of knew the magnitude of what I needed to do. And it's been pretty good so far. I've had tremendous support from the fans. I've had good support within the football club to sort of take the club in the direction I wanted to. And I kind of knew that there was always a ticking clock against me to get it right as soon as we possibly could, because it's not just for me. I think people sort of thought that I was worried about my own tenure. It wasn't that. It was just that a football club like Celtic can't go 2 seasons without having success. It just can't happen. So I knew that I had to get it right this first year. And as you said, we won a trophy. We're doing okay in the league. We're still in Europe. I got through the Scottish FA Cup yesterday. So still plenty to do, mate, but going all right.
And Ange, let's talk about that when you were originally appointed. And there was a few eyebrows raised, and as there always is, regardless of where it is around the world. But I want to step inside your head. I mean, what did you say to basically the main people at the club, which are the players, and how did you say it? I mean, that opening address, in my opinion, is so important as being an ex-player and knowing, when a new manager comes in, how as an ex-player you look him up and down.
Yeah, again, it's not an unusual space for me, Bozza. I mean, I know the whole of Australia loves me at the moment, but I've had to prove myself over there as well. There was plenty of skeptics every time I got a role there, and that's only natural, as you said. I mean, that's the nature of football, where there's always question marks when somebody gets appointed. Obviously, with me coming over here, there's a lot of the unknown in terms of who I was and what I was about. Again, that doesn't really affect me or the kind of messaging I have. I mean, my first address is always the same. It's about trying to get people to believe in me, right? So it doesn't matter how much knowledge I have, what I believe, what I want people to do, unless they actually believe in me as a person, first of all, none of that will work. And wherever I've been, whether that was here or in Japan or back in Australia with the different jobs I had there, it's about trying to get people to understand me as a person, what I'm about, what I believe, what my values are, how I want us to play our football, the kind of vision we're going to have for the kind of football team we're going to be. Because to come in and talk about winning games and winning trophies, I don't think that's unique. I think there wouldn't be a manager in the world that doesn't want to win football games or win trophies. That's not going to get people's attention. What you need to try and sell is something beyond that, and that's what I've always done. For me, it's always been about football. Play a certain way, have certain values, and if I can get people to believe in me, then those kind of things tend to flow on a little bit quicker.
Having said that, Ange, and it's my turn to return the compliment. It's been, wonderful to see, the achievements that you've had this season already, following on from Japan, to take this club back to, the peak of the SPL, to win your first trophy this season. Of course, we're so much looking forward to seeing you in European competition again late this week. I know that the player recruitment has obviously been a big part of what you've done there. You've brought in quite a high number of players. You made some comments about Japanese players recently, kind of, I guess lecturing to the Scottish press, saying, look, don't put them all in the same basket. But you have got 4 across there. What about the other players that you brought in? What is it? Can you give us an insight into your recruitment, what you're looking at, what type of players that you're looking at to come in and play your football that allows you to make this huge quantum leap in such a short space of time?
Well, that was kind of probably one of the key things for me, Craig, because obviously, again, anything I say or in terms of, again, what I'm trying to create is always secondary to the actions of what I do. And I knew that getting the right players in was going to be the first critical part of me being judged over here, in terms of my football knowledge and how I wanted to put this team up. Because if I signed players that didn't fit what I was saying and the kind of football, then it was going to be hard. So I had to really make sure that the players fitted the ideology of the kind of football team we wanted to be, fit the kind of demographic in terms of ages and experience. So those kind of things were really important. So, and it's always been a big part of what I do is, getting the right players, because it's the old, square pegs, round holes. You've got to make sure, because a lot of talented footballers in the world, as we know, there's multitudes of them, mate. We went to Brazil with South Melbourne. There was a couple of thousand on the beach I could have picked to play for South Melbourne at the time. So it's not about just getting talented footballers. It's about footballers who fit into my football. And a key one was, say, Kyogo Furuhashi, who I knew from Japan, played against him, watched him close up. I knew he had all the ingredients to be a success over here as an individual player because of the talent he had, but also in the kind of football we want to play. So it comes back to me having a real clear idea of how you want the game to be played. I've often said I could go into a shop with my wife and she'll know exactly what to pick and buy, mate. I've got no idea. When I go looking for players, I'm the same. I've got a real clear. When I see what I want, I picture them in my team, and when they fit that picture, most of the time I think it works. And it comes back to the first thing is that I have a real clear, absolute clarity about how I want my team to play. What qualities each player should have in each position that will fit. And that makes it easier for the players as well, because they've already got some of the things I'm looking for. So their adjustment period becomes quicker. And so the players I've brought in, have hit the ground running, and people are saying, well, how quickly? Well, it's because I already know they've got the attributes I'm looking for. The rest is just them understanding the game plan. And just your point about the Japanese players, it wasn't so much lecturing, because it wasn't just about the media, it was even the football club here.
Right.
In terms of my own football clubs, to make sure we treat them as individuals, because sometimes those stereotypical things that we think about in life in general don't ring true. And the 4 boys I've brought over are totally different people, totally different types of players, and I just wanted to make sure that we treated them as individuals.
Ange, we put the word out for questions from people on social media to ask you, and a lot of people are keen to know to what extent you keep an eye on the A-League and I guess Australian players. We know you were very close to signing Riley McGree recently, but Stephen Ganavus off Twitter was asking, he's genuinely interested to know if Celtic are active in scouting the A-League, and if you see the A-League as a league that could potentially be a boom export league in the future. There's been a couple of young fellas who've even gone over to Scotland as well at Hearts with Devlin and Atkinson and a couple others bubbling under the surface. Are there players who could be of interest for Celtic in the A-League at the moment?
Look, I mean, obviously because of vested interest, I'm always watching the A-League anyway, because there's a lot of guys who I know and I work with, and who are coaching in particular in the A-League, so I follow their progress very closely. A lot of people I still keep in touch with over there. So I follow the A-League. In terms of scouting, the one thing I've, again, maybe coming because I come from a place like Australia where we've had to be fairly clever and sort of have some ingenuity around the way we look at the game. I look at everywhere, mate. I don't corner just one market. I mean, here they tend to be focused on certain markets, but I know talent can be found anywhere in the world, including Australia, and Asia is obviously, Asian football is something that I'm got great knowledge on, I'm very fond of, not just Japanese football, other parts of the region. So, in terms of our scouting, we look everywhere. Obviously with Australian players, I have better knowledge, I have good information networks there, so if anyone does stand out. But it's not about me trying to give opportunities just for the sake of it. It'll be opportunities for people, I think, because again, it's got to be the right fit for the player to come over here and be successful. The lads that, as you said, that have already come over here are doing really well at Hearts, and it's great to see them both, developing their football. So always keeping an eye on it.
And Ange, the style of play you spoke about, well, since I've been closely watching you manage sides, always been attractive and always won, which I hold so important. But in terms of when you have that period when you want to get those players in, do you have to tweak a few things just to adjust to the players that you already have? I mean, we're talking specifically, obviously, about club management here, because obviously that's a little bit of a transition time when you perhaps realise that somebody you already have can't do quite what you're asking. So do you have to tweak it a little bit then?
Yeah, I'm not a plan B kind of guy. I know you've been,
no, all right, A.5, plan A.5.
You've been at me for the last 15 years about this. So, and God bless you, I love you for it. But I just don't compromise, because ultimately, like you said, the key thing is at the end of the day, winning football games. Yeah. So, as you say, and to me, I know you say attractive. I think you can find attractiveness in any kind of football. Yeah. Ultimately, there are many different ways to be successful, many different ways to kind of, play this beautiful game of ours. And there's beauty in all of it. Some of us just appreciate different things. But for me, the reason I coach the way I coach is that's what I'm good at. That's what I can do. That's the skill set I bring to it. And, if the players haven't adjusted yet, I won't compromise, because I think that's the critical period where it gets really tested, when things aren't going well, or when maybe you don't have the right kind of players. Now, obviously, you've got to get it right quickly. So you kind of try and accelerate that process as much as you can, and by giving as much information to the players as possible. But for me, all those kind of things, the tests come when things aren't going smoothly. And it's probably why in all the jobs I've had, the initial period is always rocky, is because I don't compromise at the start. And obviously players and everyone struggles with it, even staff struggle with it initially just to get the concepts right. But I just don't compromise on that. I just think ultimately it's the football I want my teams to play, which he's a big driver for me, and it's been very, very successful. I just think it's the way to win for me as a manager. I've always said to people, if you want me to go out there on the weekends and and set up the team to sit back and get a point in a game, a draw, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. It's just not in my skill set. I've said to people a few times, when I walked into the football library, I went to one section and I stayed there. Anywhere else.
Oh, that's great. Ange, let's turn now to a European competition, if we can. Obviously, that's the big focus for us here at Stan. We'll turn to the game later this week in a moment. But just your reflections on, playing. You came into some qualifiers very early, which must have been hugely challenging. That's before you got a heap of players in, and before you had time to really change the football there. Give us a sense of, how difficult that was and what you saw. And also then you were in a group with two really top teams. Real Betis, very experienced coach, third in La Liga. You had Leverkusen, currently still third in Bundesliga. And you ran them very, very close as you were still building the team. Talk to us about European competition. Also, perhaps those two different styles of football. What differences do you see across Europe?
Yeah, so that was probably my most challenging bit, Craig. That I knew that those qualifiers come really early, and they're really important for the club. Yeah, our chance to play in Champions League is massive for a club like Celtic, and I also knew that we were nowhere near ready to tackle that task. So that was the most challenging period for me, and we played really well, not really well. We played okay in the first game against Midtjylland here, and we drew with them, and then we lost an extra time over there, which knocked us out of the first qualifying round. But in my gut, I knew we weren't ready for it. I knew instinctively that it was just a bridge too far for where the team was at the time. So, but I was still disappointed because obviously that was a chance for me to make an impact for the football club. But then when we got into the group stages, firstly, I love playing in the Europa League, and particularly, like I said, against the calibre of opponents we had. It was a real challenge for me as a manager, and to play against ostensibly what Leverkusen to me are a Champions League side in any other year. They're a fantastic team, and as you said, Betis with Pellegrini the last couple of years has been outstanding. So I got really excited when we got the group because I thought, okay, here's a real good test for us, and we got tested, mate. First game we had at home against Leverkusen, we lost 4-0. We bizarrely enough played really well, created some great chances, but got absolutely punished for the smallest of mistakes. And you kind of understand the levels in this game that exist. But really proud of the players that after that we kind of said, okay, we had to cop a little bit of a hiding on the day, but we did it with the knowledge that was going to improve us because we tested ourselves. Ultimately, we could have gone out there, lost 1 or 2-0 and not really found out anything. But I think we found out a lot about ourselves that day, and the players did. I think the players got a bit of courage from that because I didn't change anything after that. I said to them, look, that's the team we want to be, and that's the gap. They're a 4-goal better team than us because they punished our mistakes and we didn't punish theirs. So, but then, we grew as the tournament went into it. We lost 3-2 away to Leverkusen, another great game. We took it to them in their, on their home ground, which again, I was proud of the players that we were brave enough to do that. And then, we beat Betis at home, which again was important because anytime you win, again, going back to Boz's point, winning is paramount in football. It's not, the aesthetics are all great, but ultimately you've got to deliver, you've got to win. And for us to win against a really top side in the Europa League was important. And then we had our 2 wins against Ferencváros. So I think it's been a great learning curve for us as a group to know that, okay, this is the kind of football we want to play. We're not going to compromise just because we're in Europe. And to know what the best do and how we need to improve to cope with it, but also that we can be successful. So, going to the Conference League now, and it's a great opportunity again to just test ourselves with some fantastic clubs left in it. Bodo Glimt, the Norwegian champions the last 2 years, play a really expansive, aggressive type of football. So, can't wait for them, mate.
And you've got another Twitter question for you. This one from Simple Cactus. And a slightly bigger picture on this one. Has being in Japan and now Scotland given you a clearer perspective on the issues in Australian football and how to solve them?
Well, I look, you know what, you all know Australian football's so close to my heart, and I kind of said after I left the national team job, you know, Australian football and me just needed a trial separation, just some space, because, you know, it like a lot of people in Australia, it had worn me down, because I just wanted to succeed so much. I wanted to become, for us to become the football nation I know we can become. But, you know, the problems are so endemic in certain parts of our game that I found it really hard to break free. Look, I thought when I took the national job, I thought that was my opportunity, right? So I had this real clear vision about what I wanted to do as national team manager that I thought would go a long way to sort of, not that I had all the answers, but helping us open some doors to finding some solutions for our game. And again, I based it around one thing, is that and Bozzy, you remember we had this conversation when I got appointed to the national team. I remember Bozza spoke to me and he said, Ange, don't take the team to the 2014 World Cup. So you're in a hiding to nothing. Let somebody else take it, and then take it over for the Asian Cup. And I remember at the time thinking that, no, I want to win the Asian Cup. The reason I was obsessed with winning the Asian Cup, because I thought that could be a watershed moment for Australian football, because I think winning is everything, right? So I equated it to the Euros. When a nation wins the Euros, irrespective of how strong the nation, so it could be a Denmark or a Greece, it's a seminal moment in that country's evolution, because all of a sudden they feel like they've achieved something, you know? So for me, going to the 2014 World Cup was important, because I wanted to start planting the seeds of us 12 months later lifting a trophy, a continental trophy that I thought would then give me the power and also allow me the opportunity and give us as a nation to stand up and say, okay, this is who we are now. We want to be the dominant side in our region, Asia, which is not easy. Okay, we've already seen that in World Cup qualifying campaigns. But I wanted us to be the Brazil or the Germany or whatever other nation that dominates its region, and that was my starting point. But I just felt, you know, I think it was even a week after winning the Asia, I just felt really flat, because it didn't have the impact I thought it would. I misread what happened, you know, and what the impact it would possibly have. And then sort of through that World Cup campaign, I just felt like we'd just gone back into that cycle again of, you know, not understanding what it takes to become, you know, a really strong footballing nation. And it wasn't just about qualifying for World Cups. It was having an identity, being, you know, believing in something, you know, and I still don't think we've, you know, capitalised on what I thought it should have been. I mean, we've been to 4 Asian Cups, you know, and we've only won 1, so it's not like we sit here and say, well, Ange, it's easy to win. Right? It's not like that, and it could be another 4 before we win it again, right? So that was going to be my benchmark. That was going to say, well, from now on, don't accept anything less than winning the Asian Cup every time, qualifying for the World Cup, and make it being the #1 nation in Asia. And I couldn't find that sort of golden key to open that up. I just felt at the end of it, I was determined to make us qualify for another World Cup, and with that group of players. And I know we went through the playoffs, and again, you know, we may have to go through playoffs again. People dismiss that. That's very, very difficult to do. I mean, you guys, and we didn't always not qualify in playoffs against South American opposition. You guys know, sometimes against Asian opposition.
100%.
Playoff games are tough. Playoff games are tough. So, you know, the group still got through that. You know, even when we went to the Confederations Cup, my idea was to get to the semi-finals of Confederations Cup, you know, and I was gutted when we you know, against Chile, we had our opportunities that day. So that was my vision for it. Now, the reason I talk about it like that is because, you know, the answers I thought were there weren't the right ones, obviously, right? And so moving forward, what this does solve it, I just think we need, you know, constant scrutiny, constantly, you know, there are some bright young coaches out there, some bright young people out there. We need to start tapping into them, and hopefully they've got the energy to make us the football nation I believe we can be.
Beauty. Ange, we're going to focus a little bit more on, I guess, the game coming up on Friday morning against Bodo Glimt. To do that, we're going to bring in Norwegian football expert Lars Siverson. Lars, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Hi.
Ange spoke a little bit more about Bodo Glimt earlier. What can you tell us about what Ange's team is going to expect on Friday morning, our time?
It's such an interesting matchup because there's real similarities between the way they approach the game and what Ange is doing at Celtic. They also, tactically, they also like to, well, obviously play a 4-3-3, but they like to try to win the ball high up the field. They look after the ball, but they also look to try to raise the tempo when they can. But aside from the obvious tactical stuff, they have a real sort of holistic approach to treating the players as human beings. They've done stuff like they've brought in a former fighter pilot to do mental coaching sessions with them. They've encouraged everyone to maybe try meditating if that could help them. They have a real culture of openness where players are encouraged to speak to each other about what's going on. So the tactical stuff we see here right now, this is like watching Ange Celtic, the quick exchange of passes. Look, so in tactical, I mean, when Ange has been doing prep for this, you'll have recognized a lot from Bodo Glimt, from what you get your own team to do. But again, the holistic approach to how you treat footballers is really interesting. And Bodo Glimt came from nowhere to be a success, not from nowhere, but from a very low base. Bodo is a town of 50,000 people. It's inside the Arctic Circle. They'd never won the league before. And they've stormed the league 2 seasons in a row, and they've done it largely with sort of players who were quite unknown in Norway as well, and players who had failed other places and at other teams. There'd been no buying of established stars at all, but they've created an environment off there where players feel appreciated and where they develop in a way that they just haven't been able to do elsewhere.
Ange, does that ring true for you? And I guess how are you looking at preparing for this game? Obviously, acknowledging the fact you guys have got a whole heap of games on this month, so it's pretty heavy on the legs.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and people, should realise that footage that's against Roma. Yeah, that's against Jose Mourinho.
Incredible.
Roma, and they did it in Rome as well. So my attention, they grabbed my attention back then, even before we knew we were going to play them. So I think they've got an outstanding young manager, and they play, like I said, a real expansive, really progressive kind of football. So it should be a cracking game. Look, we're like I said, we're in a heavy schedule of games, but at the same time, we're kind of in a good mode at the moment in terms of we're in good form, and obviously players fit. Whereas with Bodo, they're a bit similar to us in our Champions League qualifiers because obviously they're in pre-season mode at the moment. So potentially that could work both ways. Maybe we will match sharpness, but they may have a freshness about them. But I've got no doubt they'll be cracking games, both of them, because they do play a really expansive kind of football. We're not going to change our approach. As you said, we're heading to the Arctic Circle, so my complaint about Scottish weather will go out the window. But that's the beauty of European football. That's why, for me as a manager, that's probably the stuff that gets the adrenaline going, is just to test yourself, different conditions, different kinds of teams, different kinds of setups. So looking forward to it immensely. I think they'll be great games.
Lars is going to stick with us for the rest of the show. Ange, we wish you could too, but we have to let you go. Unfortunately, you've got a few things on.
Thank you so much, Ange.
Absolute pleasure to have you on, Ange. Thanks and good luck.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Take care, boys. Take care.
Superb.
How good, eh?
Absolutely superb. Great. Very, very fortunate.
Friday morning's going to be unbelievable.
Friday
really exciting. Good time for us.
Oh, 7 a.m.
Hugely attractive, but that was brilliant. He certainly hasn't lost his attractiveness as a person and a football brain, and just listening to him is great. And I think it would be great for all our Australian viewers as well. It was a really good interview.